Hi everyone, my name is Janice Rivers, and tonight I'm going to be doing my speech on the book of James. I will be doing this in front of my daughter, Zara Rivers. Now, the book of James is known as the Proverbs of the New Testament, and that is because it's so practical in nature. The purpose of the book of James is to understand the author's intent and really apply scripture to your life in the day-to-day. It's a very short book, but it is very to the point. It's very direct. James minces no words in this book. Now, James is written by James, who is the half-brother of Jesus. And in true sibling form, James is a skeptic. How many of you can identify with having a sibling that just gets under your skin? I imagine that Jesus being so perfect and doing all of these things, James probably had a little bit of a bad taste in his mouth in his childhood and was very skeptical of Jesus in his ministry as the Messiah. However, after his death and resurrection, Jesus came back to James and revealed himself. And that changed everything for him. He ended up going from being an intense skeptic to one of the leaders of the early churches in Jerusalem. He was courageous, he was learned, he was humble, and he had such a strong faith. Talk about a life change. What a way for a sibling to impact your life. Now, the audience of this book was two Jewish Christians that were scattered amongst nations. In fact, they were called the 12 tribes of the dispersion. They were scattered all over the face, facing persecution and oppression. They were dealing with poverty, they were dealing with illness, and really James wrote to do two things. He wrote to encourage them in times of hardship, but he also wrote to them to walk out their faith in spite of challenging times. Now, this book is written in about AD 44 to AD 49, which is one of the earliest books of the New Testament happening near Christ's resurrection. And that explains why James was so focused on the individual unit of application and not so much of a macro church level movement. He was really focused on the individual at this point. Now, the literary style to this book is, again, very similar to that of Proverbs or Psalms. It is a book of wisdom literature. So it is made up of very direct commands and very short statements and vivid imagery. Now, James does use a pastoral tone, so there is care there. The fact that he's taking the time to correct and to draw out bad behaviors is a sign of care, but it's not necessarily lovey-dovey. It is very curt, very direct, very firm, but again, it's done in love. Now, there are a few central themes to this book. One of those is faith through action. Again, these Christians that he was focusing on at the time were facing all level of hardships. And so he's teaching them perseverance through trial. He's teaching them to have control over their tongue. I would imagine at the time there was a lot of disgruntled people. There was a lot of hurt. There's a lot of vindictiveness because when people are hurt, they do hurtful things. And James was really trying to hone that and direct that and ultimately point everyone back to Jesus. He also emphasized caring for the poor and being humble. So these are all, again, things that he was seeing at the time, but we can still apply in our day-to-day as Christians. Now, the key passage in James that I take away is James 1:22 that says, "Be ye doers of the word and not hearers only." I think this is almost like the thesis statement to the book of James. He means that true faith truly and ultimately results in obedience. He ultimately warns against self-deception and that believers should be not be tempted towards passive faith, but should be actively walking out their faith at all times. Now, professionally, I see the importance of this in biblical application, I think it is so important that we remember as we pursue ministry or counseling or teaching, whatever it is that the Lord has called us to do. It's so important that we not only ingest the information that's given to us, but that we always walk out the knowledge that the Lord is putting into us. And ultimately, for me, it's a challenge to walk out scripture, not just say I know it, not just quote it or post it in an Instagram story or a reel, but to actually take time and live that out in the day to day. I really appreciate James's tone in this. It's very no nonsense, which is kind of countercultural today, where everything has gotten so soft. James really takes the time to make it plain, to get in front of you and realize the importance of the work that we do each day. Really, it's inspired to me to be a better Christian, and ultimately, I hope it inspires you too. That's all I got. See you next time.